The world's largest stablecoin issuer, Tether, now holds more US Treasuries than Germany. Circle's stock price pumped over 800% since their IPO, and stablecoin supply topped $250 billion for the first time ever. Now, the Genius Act passing enables over 3,000 US banks to issue Solana stablecoins. People are understandably calling this a Stablecoin Summer. Some analysts even believe that SOL could reach $500 this cycle. So, combined with the ETF approvals, here's what the Genius Act and this new stablecoin legislation could really mean for the Solana ecosystem. Aside from the very clever naming, this Genius Act, short for Guiding and Enabling National Innovation for US Stablecoins Act, marks a historic first for US federal legislation because it's the first ever stablecoin bill to pass a chamber of Congress. It also passed with strong bipartisan support, 68-30, which is very unusual in US crypto regulation.
Yeah, well, I think it's incredibly exciting news, as this is legislation that Congress started first talking about back in 2019 and something that multiple Congresses have considered and debated. And so to get the entire Genius Act, the stablecoin regulatory framework, through the full Senate is quite an achievement.
When the Genius Act re-entered the scene in late January, it also opened up what the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent now thinks will become a $3.7 trillion industry. And it seems that the only thing ETH maxis and Solana maxis can align on is boosting stablecoin adoption. But since January, we've also been eagerly awaiting the spot Solana ETFs, when the first major and equally disappointing price and inflow prediction came from JPMorgan, that Solana ETFs would likely only attract $3 to $6 billion and projected to have a roughly $10 price impact. But fast forward to today, and there are 8 pending applications with 95% approval odds. Solana has outperformed all L1 and L2 chains in network revenue for the 13th straight week. And following the Genius Act, we saw a Fortune 500 firm launching a stablecoin platform on Solana. So, JPMorgan was likely wrong, not because they got the maths wrong, but because they didn't foresee the regulatory environment shifting this much. Now, yes, despite that overwhelming support, plenty of Democrats voted against the bill. But they did so, at least in part, because they wanted the bill to be more focused on preventing the Trump family from profiting off of their meme coins and their other digital asset endeavors. So essentially, the bill could have been even more comprehensive. And granted, the bill itself is not exactly breaking news. In fact, we've expected it to pass since last month. But this strong bipartisan support signals a major policy shift away from the skepticism and towards a more strategic integration of stablecoins within US financial infrastructure. This is true from Congress to the White House, because we saw from Secretary Scott Bessent recently that, much to the industry's delight, this administration no longer thinks of stablecoins as a threat to the US dollar.
That seems to be a threat to the dollar, doesn't it?
I think it's the opposite.
Oh, really?
I think stablecoins could reinforce dollar supremacy.
He also thinks that stablecoins could grow into a $3.7 trillion market, and that the Genius Act is a win-win-win for everyone, including the private sector, the Treasury, and consumers. Now, this context is what's critical. It's why we've moved beyond JPMorgan's measly $10 price prediction from January. Analysts have more recently argued that spot ETF inflows could actually be exaggerated as a result of all of this bullish momentum, the Treasury plays, and now the Genius Act, which together could at least push Solana to a new all-time high.
We should easily get past the all-time high once people begin to realize where the fiat currencies are at and the challenges they have in front of them, and how stablecoins and this Genius Act is going to inject a vast amount of liquidity into the crypto land. I think that will drive a lot of value beyond Bitcoin into other altcoins, right? And Solana is ultimately a major destination.
This advantage is only compounded by the Solana Policy Institute, who's been hard at work helping to shape healthy crypto policy in DC. And we'll hear more from them in just a second. We'll also be posting an interview with them shortly, so you can click that bell button now and get notified when that video is live. But evidently, it's not only politicians and institutions that are getting excited about this new Genius Act, because we have reason to be excited too. As Huma Finance co-founder Erbil puts it, the Genius Act could bring trillions of institutional capital to crypto. And he adds that stablecoins will transform from speculative tools to core infrastructure as we surge towards that $1.6 trillion market by 2030. Now that is an astronomical growth projection in just 5 years, considering we currently sit at around $250 billion or $250 billion. So can stablecoin issuance grow by over $1 trillion, roughly a third of all of crypto's entire market cap, or is this Stablecoin Summer idea just more hype? While it might feel too early to be claiming a Solana Stablecoin Summer, analysts like Stefan and many others have estimated that stablecoins could 10x from their current market cap. Here's the Mooch explaining just how stablecoins will lower transaction costs for consumers while also boosting US dollar dominance in the world, in what feels like an ideal scenario for everyone involved.
You'll pay with a stablecoin and you'll avoid the 3.5% credit card fee. And I think that's sorely overdue. I mean, there's approximately $7 trillion of money that's spent globally on verification of transactions, which includes credit card fees, wiring fees, all these different things that we're using. And if you can cut that down using stablecoins, using the blockchain, I think we should be doing that. And I will applaud the administration for wanting to advance that.
Here's the largest stablecoin issuer, Tether's CEO, and why the future of stablecoins looks bright both in the US and abroad.
Well, I think that there are two point of views, right? So I think that in two big markets. One is the foreign market for stablecoins, i.e. all the emerging markets in developing countries. So those countries that want desperately to have access to the US dollar in the form of USDT or like a US dollar-based stablecoin, those markets have 50% inflation year over year. Think about Turkey or Argentina and similar. And so for those markets, stablecoins are very important. So these populations are really caring about having a solid, strong product that will preserve their wealth and help their families through these difficult times with, against the devaluation of their national currencies. In the US, I see a huge competition with probably tens or hundreds potentially of stablecoins, all fighting each other, and will basically be a race to the bottom for the profitability of these stablecoins in very high efficient markets like the United States.
All right, so it's obvious that there's opportunity both domestically and abroad, but why are the suits getting so excited about stablecoins now all of a sudden? Here's Julian Friedman explaining the urgency that we're now feeling and why institutions have been seeking more clarity around stablecoins.
People want clarity in terms of the rules of the road because stablecoins really represent like one of the first major use cases of blockchain technology outside of just the more of the crypto sphere, because it's a really efficient way to send money regardless of what the underlying technology is. So people are really excited about the potential, and up until relatively recently, it hasn't been clear how they can actually build with it and what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Circle is the second largest stablecoin issuer, and they've also been in the headlines recently for their regular stablecoin mints. They've now reached over $2 billion of USDC minted on Solana. And Circle's recent accomplishments are impressive. It indicates that investors clearly want more exposure to stablecoin bets. Here's Stefan Rust again, this time explaining how all this stablecoin activity will likely benefit the entire Solana ecosystem.
What is going to happen is liquidity is going to be injected into these markets via stablecoins. So any entity that buys treasuries, US treasuries, will be able to mint their own coin. So Apple, that's sitting on how many billions and hundreds of billions of dollars in cash? Facebook, Amazon, Walmart, all of them are sitting on a lot of cash. They buy treasuries and they mint their own stablecoins. What platform do they mint that on? Do they mint it on Solana? Do they mint it on Ethereum? They won't mint it on Bitcoin, but where will they mint those coins? And if they mint it on Solana, they will start having financial officers and people in finance that will start to manage and allocate and decide how to deploy that, how to do trades, how to build financial services, or which services and protocols to interact with on the Solana platform. That to me is a bigger injection of liquidity into the market over the next 3 to 4 years. I see the stablecoin going from a currently market cap of maybe 250 billion to $2 trillion in the next 2 years. That's a huge 10x up, right?
So yes, we may well be living through a stablecoin summer, and stablecoins may well shape up to be the dominant use case, at least for the foreseeable future. Because we see a similar pattern with stablecoin adoption globally, not just in the US. We see MiCA rolling out in the EU, Hong Kong stablecoin legislation going live in August, and we even have yuan-backed stablecoin initiatives being explored in China. The very same China that's tried and failed to ban crypto something like once a year for the last decade. The US regulators likely notice this, and they want to steam ahead so they can ensure they lead on critical topics. So these global tailwinds for USD-backed stablecoins are only making the dollar stronger. Great. But as Jason Choi argues, the irony of the crypto industry now celebrating the Treasury Secretary's remarks about reinforcing dollar supremacy should not be lost on us. Jason's reminder is about first principles, that there is a caveat to all of this change. Because while many see Stablecoin Summer as progress, there are of course those in the industry who increasingly feel alienated from that original promise of crypto as a technology and its ethos of decentralization. But on the bright side, at least we're not talking about CBDCs again. So we have a shifting regulatory attitude towards stablecoins, we have the Solana Policy Institute representing the ecosystem in DC, but what does the next couple of years for stablecoins look like? Here's Katie Horn breaking it down.
Well, it looks much bigger, not just after the Genius Act. It was already growing, something that didn't even exist, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. $250 billion of supply, and that's up so much year over year. I mean, the growth has been really exponential. You're talking about just over a year ago, $100 billion of stablecoin supply. So it's really growing very rapidly, and we think that growth will continue, particularly with the advent of the Genius Act.
Now here's Solana Policy Institute President Kirsten Smith explaining what they observe within the Solana ecosystem right now and what their next regulatory ambitions will be.
Solana is a smart contract platform. It is very fast. It has very low fees. There's a tremendous amount of developer activity happening on Solana. It's actually the most used blockchain in the world right now. It's a great platform for stablecoin issuance. And so, these public blockchains can do many different things. And I think over time, Wall Street will understand how important these foundational layer one blockchains are. And it turns out a layer one blockchain like Solana is an amazing set of rails for the issuance and trading of equities. I think the issue that we've had over the past several years is we haven't had the right kind of guidance from the SEC. There's really this collaborative back and forth there that is going to help provide the right kind of guidance that will ultimately allow all of these new assets to come.
So all in all, stablecoin issuance and this new Genius bill are helping institutions come on chain. As they do, PayFi innovations like that of Huma can truly proliferate and become that trillion-dollar solution that we heard about earlier. On the consumer side, it means a healthier environment for providers like Cast to operate in. And alongside the big Treasury push and the pending ETF approvals, it signals that Solana is finally ready to bring equities on chain. Now, we'll be keeping an eye on projects like Remora Markets, which are set to launch soon, and bring tokenized stocks like Tesla and Nvidia to Solana. I want to thank you for tuning into Solana Floor. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates from across the ecosystem, and I'll see you next time for more of the very latest.